So, what's up, everybody watching on YouTube? My name is Brian Lewis. Check me out at blackandintellectual.com, which is my blog that I started back in March of this year. Also, check out some of my products at blackandintellectualshop.com, and follow me on Google+, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all of those, good social media platforms. So, I wanted to make a video today because I haven't made a video in a few weeks. I think it's been about a month almost. And because I've just been swamped with just work and writing on my blog and the shop and taking care of other things. It's just I don't always get time to actually make a video. So I wanted to do it today. I initially was going to put this video up about 5 or 6 hours ago. It's about almost 9 o'clock at night right now. I was gonna do this a lot earlier in the afternoon. It's late in the evening right now, but my emotions were just a little too raw. They were just a little too raw for a video, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't do it right then, because I probably would have said some things that I would be trying to take back right now. And I just needed to kind of detox, get out of the house and run a few errands, take care of a few things. So I'm doing this video now, and of course it's about the recent killings, the two most recent killings that we know of anyway, of two black men. One of them was on Friday, which I believe was the 16th, and the other one was yesterday. Today's Wednesday. The other one was yesterday on Tuesday, the 20th. And the most recent one was Keith Lamont Scott, and this one was in Charlotte. The one that was on Friday, the man's name was Terrence Crutcher. Terrence Crutcher was about 40 years old. I think Keith Scott was about 41, 43, something like that. And I'm just going to start with the first one, the first murder first, because that's what we're talking about here. And something else with this video, I'm not really going to pull any punches, because quite frankly, I see that being done too often. And I'm going to get up to this a little bit later in the video. But yeah, so first with Terrence Crutcher, the video came out sometime after he was shot. I want to say it was either Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure exactly. But the controversy around his death was certainly felt on social media throughout the weekend. And there's a helicopter video of him being shot, and there's also a dash cam video that's been part of it anyway, has been released as well. This man broke down in the middle of the road. I was about to say on the side of the road. I believe it was actually in the middle of the road. So he was desperate. He was needing help. Okay, and he was not under any suspicion of being a criminal whatsoever. So we're not talking about somebody who was in the act of a crime and trying to flee or something like that. This man broke down. Something that can happen to anybody. It's happened to me numerous times before, actually. And I'm sure it's happened to you if you're watching this, unless you're just lucky. And instead of being helped and aided, one particular cop, whose name actually escapes me right now, it was a female police officer, ends up killing this man because she felt threatened. And what's interesting about this story is that there's a completely different narrative that this woman spun, claiming that he had a gun, claiming that he was walking back to his car or his truck, whatever it was, she thought he was trying to get some sort of weapon. A completely fabricated story that was debunked as soon as the two videos that we know of were released to the public. And you can clearly see this man with his arms raised, his hands raised in the air, not doing a whole lot of moving, and he wasn't really close to the police officers at all before he was gunned down to death. And his body was left there, and he was left there to bleed out. I'm not sure how long it took for him to actually die, but they did not attempt whatsoever to save him. And you have a lot of people who look at this, and you start seeing the apologist arguments coming out, the police apologist arguments coming out, talking about how, all sorts of fabricated things. But before I get to that in a second, let me go over to Keith Lamont Scott, because people were still upset about the first shooting, the first murder, and you had all sorts of people coming out on social media talking about what happened to Mr. Crutcher and his family coming out, and it was really a mess. And the fact that this happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a city with quite frankly a horrendous racial past. I mean, we're talking about the city of Black Wall Street, a prosperous black town that was bombed and burned to the ground because racist white people were upset about the successes of computer screen going out. The successes of those black people. So, just yesterday, as people are still trying to figure out what's going on with Terrence Crutcher in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mr. Scott, Keith Lamont Scott. Now, this guy, he was waiting in his car, and according to several eyewitnesses, waiting in his car, minding his business, and something happens. I'm not exactly sure how the altercation started, but he was ordered to get out of his truck, and he did. And according to eyewitnesses, several eyewitnesses, sort of like this is just sort of what happened with Ferguson. Eyewitnesses are saying it's one thing, police are coming out completely fabricating a completely different story, because if the story that the eyewitnesses tell holds, then those cops need to be held accountable. And actually, I think what's happening in Charlotte is worse than what's happening in Tulsa, for what I'm about to tell you, because of what I'm about to tell you. So they order him to get out of his car. Now he's waiting at the bus stop because his daughter is about to get home from school, and he's picking her up from the bus stop, or at the bus stop. And so, like most people would do, if you're trying to burn some time, you're waiting somewhere trying to burn time, what are you going to do? A lot of people are going to read. So eyewitnesses are saying that he had a book in his hand when he got out of the car or his truck. And he got out, according to one particular eyewitness, he got out of his truck with his arms raised, his hands in the air. Very similar to what Terrence Crutcher did in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So black people know, like when you see people, especially law enforcement, trying to spin these far-fetched narratives about these superhuman black people who are just waiting to pop off on some law enforcement officers, take a lot of that with a grain of salt. I'm telling people this, take a lot of that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does. But they're trying to turn every single one of these cases into a super Negro story. And that's just not logical. People need to start using logic when it comes to these stories and discerning truth from fiction. Okay. And start asking yourself, is what the cops are saying, is what law enforcement is saying in this particular case, is it logical? Or is what they are saying logical in terms of what we know? The vast majority of people are intimidated by cops anyway, especially black people. So this notion that you have a bunch of black people running around just waiting to shoot some cops, it is far-fetched at best, because they are making a lot of these stories up, especially if there's not video footage to prove them otherwise. So he's getting out of his truck and he's inquiring what's going on, as eyewitnesses are relaying to the public, and he's executed. He is gunned down, in cold blood. Okay, now what's happening in Charlotte, and by the way, this was live streamed. A lot of people caught this on camera, and even his daughter. It's imagine how fucked up. And let me go back. I'm trying not to curse. This is why I'm making this video now instead of 5 or 6 hours ago, because this video would have been much more laced with profanity, and I'm trying to avoid that. So imagine how jacked up, I'll just use that word instead, it is to be, imagine his daughter getting off the school bus thinking, I can't wait to see Dad. What are me and Dad gonna do when we get home? How are we gonna spend time with each other? Just to see your father laying on the ground somewhere in a pool of blood. Imagine what's going through imagine the trauma that his daughter is going through right now. So, a thing that's missed by a lot of people who get caught up in spinning these lies to spin some sort of apologist narrative for law enforcement. Well, the things like, the trauma of the family gets lost almost all of the time. No one's thinking about what the trauma that his daughter is going through right now. Okay, so she gets off the bus and she's recording and she's live streaming too. And I'm glad other people got footage. Honestly, I'm glad other people got footage, because Pat McCrory, the governor of North Carolina, just a few months ago in July, signed a bill blocking body cam footage and dash cam footage from being released to the public. So now I'm sure there's some sort of way the public can still gain access to that footage. And I'm hoping there is some body cam or dash cam footage. But to be perfectly honest with you, with the way they're spinning this story in Charlotte, I don't think we're ever going to see those videos. And even if there is dash cam or body cam footage, I wouldn't be surprised if they're deleting a lot of that stuff. And I don't put it past them either. Because what's happening now in Charlotte is, let me back up. So I was on Twitter earlier, early in the morning, when a lot of this stuff was blowing up and social media was on fire. There's a video floating around of the police chief of Charlotte, who's actually a black man, who's a brother. Before I continue, these black cops are not looking out for the black community. They're just not. So going back to Ferguson in Baltimore, how everybody was throwing out, oh, we just need more black cops. Stop it. Stop it. That is not remotely helping the situation. The problem is not the cops the problem is the cops who are doing these crimes and covering up these murders. They are a huge part of the problem, but it's much bigger than them. The problem is the system. So it doesn't matter if it's a black cop or a white cop doing the murdering. The murder is still murder, and it's still unconstitutional regardless of who's doing it. But I digress on that. So I saw on Twitter earlier where there's this video floating around. It's like 30 seconds or so. And the black police chief is talking about how the Charlotte Police Department needs to change the narrative. Now, that is a cold term. Okay, and I even saw when it comes to the Terrence Crutcher case in Tulsa, I was doing some research before I started making this video, and there's even an article that y'all can probably pull up on CNN.com, and the headline of the article goes something like is the narrative, or is the emerging narrative around the death of Terrence Crutcher accurate? Or it's something, that's like the gist of the narrative. I mean, that's like the gist of the headline. But don't quote me on that specifically. That's probably not how it's literally, quoted. But, and even that CNN article is going into how, well, should we be trusting what's going on social media? See, y'all have to start watching out when law enforcement and their collaborators within the media, because the media is in on it. Understand that too. The media is definitely in on it, without a shadow of a doubt. Because what the media is doing is they're doing nothing but going out and regurgitating whatever the law enforcement officers are saying, whatever the police department is saying. So if the police department is spinning this completely false narrative, what is the media going to be doing? They're also spinning a false narrative, which is why you even have people on Twitter. I think Sean King was tweeting this. Stop, because you had some people in the media who were actually even calling Keith Lamont Scott a gunman. Stop doing that. He's not a gunman. So what I was trying to get to earlier is basically they're spinning a narrative. This is their changing of the narrative in Charlotte, which is code for propaganda, spinning a story. What they're basically doing is doing what the Ferguson Police Department did. You just say the eyewitnesses are lying. They don't know what they're talking about. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe the people who were actually there, who saw what happened. Believe us, because we're authority figures. Believe what we say happened, and what we say happened is the most important, because we're the authority figures, and we're right, and we say we're right. That's basically what's going on here, and they're saying that that Keith Scott didn't have a book. Even though there's an eyewitness, like I said earlier, who saw Keith Scott getting out of his truck. She saw the book falling out of his lap, okay, because he had to step over it because he had his hands up as he was getting out the truck. So the book was in his lap. He's getting out the truck with his hands up. The book falls out of his lap and onto the ground. They're claiming he didn't have a book. They're claiming it was a gun, okay, and they're claiming that he did not have his hands up. They're claiming that he was killed because the law enforcement officers felt threatened, which is all they need to say. If you've seen enough of these cases by now, you should know, all they need to say is they felt that they were in danger somehow. Hold on, I need a drink of water. My mouth is getting a little dry. All they need to say is that they felt threatened. That's it. And so that's what they're saying. They're saying, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what you see, the dash cam and the helicopter cam footage showing you in Tulsa, Oklahoma of I was about to say Walter Scott. I'm getting like all of these names mixed up because there's so many of them, of what Terrence Crutcher. Don't believe that video of it. You can clearly see his hands raised and him getting gunned down, but don't believe that. Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe the spin that we're putting on this. And so this is done for several reasons. Number one, you have a lot of people in this country who I'm now calling state violence deniers. You know how people call Holocaust deniers because obviously they deny that the Holocaust happened. They denied that all the Nazis killed all those Jews. So people rightfully deride them for being Holocaust deniers. Well, you have people in America who are basically similar to that. You have people in America who are the equivalent of Holocaust deniers. They are what I call state violence deniers. Okay, you have these people who are silent as a lamb especially when there's a video of somebody being killed, because it's not as easy to spin a video. So they're silent as a lamb when there's video footage of a killing, and you don't see any of these Nazis, these neo-Nazis online saying anything. And then as soon as you get sort of like a Keith Scott situation in Charlotte, where there's no video footage, and the cops can come out and spin whatever lie, whatever fabricated story they want to, you have these state violence deniers who are waiting for that. They wait to jump on that. You know what? And we have to start acknowledging something, and I said this on Twitter. We have to start acknowledging something else. We have to start acknowledging that you have a lot of people in this country who do not believe in freedom. They do not believe in freedom. They do not believe in justice. And they do not believe in liberty. Not for everybody. They believe in it for themselves. That's the key. They believe in it for themselves. They do not believe it in any sort of universal fashion. Unless you're playing the role of the coon and you're going out there and apologizing for a lot of these crimes, these constitutional violations and these unconstitutional acts. If you're black and you go out there and co-sign that and cover up for that, oh yeah, they'll respect your freedoms. They'll respect your liberty because you're being a protector of white supremacy in the criminal justice system. But if you're like me, if you're like any of these other black people who aren't standing up, who aren't standing for this, they don't believe in freedom and democracy and liberty for you. They don't. And you can see it in how they react to these killings. Because at this point, if you're still playing stupid, and I'm talking to you, state violence deniers, if you're at the point now where you're still playing stupid about these constitutional violations that are going on, that the DOJ report exposed, at least in the case of the Baltimore Police Department. But let's not play ignorant. Let's not be willfully ignorant. Let's stop pretending that is just isolated to Baltimore. Okay, that is something that is going on across the country. We just haven't proven it yet. Okay? But there doesn't need to be a DOJ investigation of every police department in the country for the obvious systemic and systematic abuses and human rights violations to be acknowledged. So stop trying to raise the bar to this artificially high level that you know is not going to be leapt because you don't want to acknowledge reality. Okay? I told you I'm not pulling any punches in this video. And I'm tired. I'm at the point now where I'm tired of trying to persuade people who don't want to be persuaded. Because you have a lot of people in this country who don't want to acknowledge the truth. They don't want to believe the truth. They want to believe, which is why these narratives, these lies, these fabricated stories that law enforcement throws out here. That's why you have people, these I was about to say Holocaust deniers, these state violence deniers. You have people who waiting for that stuff. They're waiting for any argument to deny the truth and to not deny reality. Okay, so something else that before I get to that, when Hillary Clinton came out, and I'm not voting for her, I'm voting for Jill Stein. I'm voting green. I'm going green. I did my Demexit weeks ago. But she said something recently that I actually agree with. She called a lot of Trump supporters, not all of them, I believe she actually said half, she called them baskets of deplorables. And she was verbally killed in the media, for this, and online people lost their crap. You had all of these heads, everybody's heads were exploding at the same time, mostly on the right. If you don't want to be called deplorable, and if you don't want to be in that basket of deplorables, one thing you do not do is go on Twitter after one of these murders and use white supremacist talking points to justify those murders. That is deplorable. You are proving Hillary Clinton right when you deplorably go online and bash the black community and pour salt in the wound of the black community as we are grieving and suffering through these crimes, and then your ass goes online and says something deplorable. Whatever, and there's 30 different excuses that they use. All you have to do is go to Twitter. But you guys get upset when Hillary Clinton calls you baskets of deplorables. I think she's spot on, and I'm not voting for her, and I agree with her 100%. And you're proving her right. So I'm gonna end this video out on a couple different things here, one different note, one note in particular, because I don't want this to go past 30 minutes. Recently, you have been seeing a lot of Republicans, a lot of powerful Republicans, even former presidents like the former president George H.W. Bush, who are coming out and endorsing Hillary Clinton. Now, the reason for why this is being done, most people, and I agree with this. This is a legitimate reason why I think people are doing this, and I agree with this. Is that they know her more, they trust her more, and she's just more sane than Donald Trump. A lot of these right-wingers are not supporting Donald Trump because they don't trust him, and he's too much of a wild card. And he said some things, at least on the economic front, that they definitely don't agree with regards to some of these free trade deals. But peep this. There's another reason why I personally believe these Republicans are distancing themselves from Donald Trump. If he gets elected president, this country just might see its first official dictatorship. And I don't say that lightly. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm just reading the tea leaves. I'm in the stock market, and I feel like I've gotten good at looking at noticing trends. Okay, and there's a trend I'm seeing here with these acts of state violence, these unconstitutional acts of state violence. There's a very dark, ugly, and insidious trend that is happening right now. And I think a lot of these powerful Republicans, these establishment Republicans, I think they're seeing this same trend. If Donald Trump becomes president, don't think this problem of police brutality is getting any better. Don't think it's getting any better, folks. Actually, I'm of the opinion that it's actually going to get worse. Actually, I think it's going to get a lot worse. And I think that's one of the other reasons, and a lot of people aren't really picking up on this. I think this is another reason why a lot of these powerful Republicans, they're distancing themselves from him, because if he becomes president and he does something extremely crazy and extremely evil, and I'm using that word not in a religious sense, not evil in the sense that I literally think a demon is jumping into Donald Trump's body. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying evil in terms of actions, in terms of your actions. I believe you can be an individual, even if you're an individual who is normally good. I think you can do an evil thing. I think murder is evil. Okay, I think rape is evil. Certain things are just evil. Shooting a person when he has his hands up and leaving him on the ground to bleed out while he dies and sits standing there watching them. I don't care how many liberals get upset and want to apologize and say, well, they're not all bad. No, that's fucking evil. And I didn't want to use that. I was trying not to cuss, but this video is at 27 minutes, and I'm seeing that I'm going to have to cut this video short because my anger is already reaching a level where I'm finding it hard to contain my righteous outrage. But that's the reason why a lot of these Republicans are not co-signing Donald Trump in his presidency. They don't want to have that blood on their hands. So people need to stay strong. Black folks, y'all stay safe, and we need to really figure out how we're going to challenge this system of white supremacy, and that's what this is. This is an unjust system. This is unconstitutional, and I don't hear anything from the DNC. I don't know. Hillary Clinton probably has released some sort of statement, but I'm not hearing anything on an official policy level from Democrats. And this has been going on for far too long, and that's one of the reasons why I've distanced myself from that political party. And I think y'all, all of y'all, especially if you're black, if you're watching this, you need to seriously give that some thought too. We need to stop supporting these political parties that come around begging for the vote, but when we're getting gunned down in the street, being left on the ground to bleed out and die while it's being live streamed on the internet, and then nobody's doing anything, well then y'all don't deserve our vote, and you don't want our votes bad enough. And I'm just going to end this video on that note.